After an evening with a woman friend in Port Melbourne, Olaf Carl Carlson returned to his room at Gordon House, a lodging house located in the heart of Melbourne. At about 8:30 p.m, he entered his basement level room. In complete darkness, he turned the bedside light on, and to his horror, he saw the dead body of his drinking buddy, William Stewart, lying on his side. His body had been slashed down the torso and across the stomach, and was disemboweled. Stewart's face was buried in a blanket, and he was naked from the waist down. At the time, homicide detectives stated the murder as most ghoulish. The press described it as one of the most gruesome murders in the history of Victoria, as well as using the terms grim slayer and sex maniac. The story the room seemed to tell was that Stewart was attacked while in bed, as there were several slashes on the bed sheet. He then rolled off onto the floor, where the killer delivered blows with a fist to Stewart's head, then placed the blanket over his head. Given blood wasn't splattered over the walls in a high volume, it was assumed that the criss-cross slashes over the torso were inflicted post-mortem. Only a table knife was recovered. A butcher's knife or a hatchet were never found. Asphyxiation was ruled as the cause of death. After interviewing all the residents of Gordon House, it came back to the man that had found the body, Olaf Carl Carlson. He was charged with murder. During the trial, Carlson claimed both he and Stewart had consumed mass amounts of alcohol together during Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Carlson said he did not murder Stewart, but after returning from the evening with his lady friend, upon entering his room, tripped on the deceased body of Stewart, and after listening for a heartbeat and hearing none, he panicked and decided to cut up Stewart's body and remove it from his room. During his dissection, he found that he didn't have the stomach to go through with it. At trial, strangely, Carlson did not call on the woman he claimed to be with that fateful evening as a witness. His reasoning was he didn't want to involve her. Maybe even more remarkably, Carlson was only found guilty of manslaughter, and he received 4 short years in jail. The pathologist stated at the trial, Stewart, who had been on a drinking bout with Carlson, died of asphyxiation caused through violence used by some other person. The judge stated he could not help thinking Carlson was lucky the full facts of the case were not available to the court. If everything was known, it would have been necessary to shut him up for the remainder of his life for the protection of the community generally. Gordon House may be Melbourne's very own Cecil Hotel. Death seems to be a regular visitor at the lodging house on Little Bourke Street. The sound of a firearm was heard, and a look through his window found that Walter Leslie Toop had blown his brains out. Kip Harold left his room in Gordon House and jumped off the Princess Bridge into the Yarra River. 2 days later, his corpse was found floating in the water. A. Bennett was found dead in his room with a gaping wound in his neck. A razor was tightly grasped in his left hand. He had sliced his own throat open. Daniel John Tom Holt passed away in his bed. Natural causes were assumed. A ginger ale bottle that was found to contain poison. Death was due to cyanide poisoning. It was ruled suicide with some evidence of mental derangement. Morris Jacobs, who lived at Gordon House, consumed poison while in Chapel Street. He collapsed on the path and later died. Charles Imhoff's bedclothes caught on fire after he lit a cigarette and fell asleep. Skin was witnessed falling off Imhoff's hands, and he later died. William Stewart was found disemboweled in his friend's room. Walter Greenfeld died in his bed. It was suspected he died of suffocation after being smothered with a pillow. A man confessed to the murder and was charged. However, The pathologist said Greenfell had a heart condition and was a candidate for death. In 1975, Gordon House closed its doors as a lodging house for men, but not before it took one final victim. Jim Parker was found dead in Gordon House. His throat had been cut. A resident was charged with murder. To this day, the old girl still stands with over 100 years of history. What other mysteries lurk within her?